So there is a lot of resistance, and there is some predictions that you're making right now about the economy and some things that are really going to happen that are going to kind of force this and people to think differently. Can you tell us of what's happening right now, what you see through the calendar, and what's
Yeah,
happening in the economy?
yeah. So quite recently, then we started a new um, phase in one of these wave movements, the eighth of the levels of the nine-storied pyramid. And that was what I called the sixth night, which
Yes.
means basically the universe is going down to a lower state. It sort of returns back. It always alternates. There's nothing really linear in the evolution of the universe, but it goes down. And so for this, usually what happens when these nights begin, at least the later nights, is that there is some downturn in creativity. They are sort of meant to be periods of rest in the
Mm.
cosmic scheme, as I can understand it. And so what I have predicted will come out here is some even intensified economic downturn, and one that will especially hit the Western economies and especially the American dollar.
Mm.
And you can never predict on a single day, so to speak, in the Mayan calendar. At least I cannot, and I have never heard anybody who can.
Mm.
But this is something that I'm expecting to happen sometime in the next couple of months, and that will sort of intensify this downturn, and in a sense, really maybe force people to come up with a new way of relating and a new way of creating the world that they did not feel obliged to earlier.
So what do you see there? Is there a financial
Well,
collapse?
yeah, I see some kind of a financial collapse, especially then some kind of significant decrease in the value of the American dollar, which is the world's reserve currency, and much of the Western power in the world has been based on. So that is what I see, and what I think the result is sort of, even you can't even speculate on it. It's just that the consequence would be some kind of a shock to the system of exchange of all monetary currencies, and probably a lot of unemployment and a lot of people not being able to pay their debts and those kind of things. And so I think that would lead to a point where there will be demands set for a cancellation of debts and such a thing, sort of setting the economy at again a reset, like
Mm.
pushing the reset button on
Mm.
the economy, and opening the space to create an entirely new way of relating, where money is not used as a means of power anymore over other people, but an economy emerges from this new consciousness of unity, based essentially on sharing and looking at the human needs as in the first place.
Mm. So are you saying, because this is I'm sure people with high debt listening to us in the United States are pretty happy to hear about that reset button. Can so
Well,
so so what does it mean for those people in deep fear right now that have big mortgages and that are really fearful of losing everything? How should they react, or do they have hopes of something different changing for themselves, or the government making a change? I mean, what should be their position right now, or what
well,
could be?
yeah, I see. Well, I sort of, I'm kind of cautious always to make
Of course.
individual predictions.
Mm.
Well, my work is to try to see the big trends of evolution, and so I'm not sure exactly how anybody would deal with this, except for the more general things that it's really important to create the kind of grassroots networks to help prepare for a new kind of a world, with experimenting with new kinds of currencies, and that then may come to be very useful in the times ahead. And this, of course, is, who knows, am I right? Well, the problem is that I've been right so many times before.
Yes.
That's, I sometimes wonder, who am I to talk about these kind of things? And then people are telling me, well, you solved the Mayan calendar, and it turns out that you've been right many times. So I can't just say, oh, don't care about this. I have to say that this is what research tells me, and so be aware that there will be very likely a new downturn in the economy, and don't just look upon this as a negative thing, but also look upon it as opening to create a completely new world, because it's absolutely possible, and there is a plan for this, and there's a plan you can understand, but you will have to align yourself with it and do what you meaning part of it is a spiritual change, a spiritual awakening that frees you from what everybody else is saying around you, so to speak, about what the world is like. That's a very important thing. But it's also this. It's not only consciousness is not just something that we have in our heads like individuals. It's something that is primarily, it's like relationships. So it's something that will transform our social relationships, the way I understand it. In other words, hierarchies will become maybe collapsing or even be weakening, and so forth. That's really what seems to be, according to what I understand, the purpose of the big plan.
And there's a lot of videos of you on the internet, and if people want to see more about that, they can. And of course, you've written many books. But can you tell us regarding the money? Money is just energy. I mean, you have this whole other perception about money. Can you tell us more what you learned from the Maya or studying the Maya calendar about money?
Well, what you learn from the Mayan calendar when it comes to money is that it is exactly what I mentioned earlier. It's the result, the emergence of money as a means of exchange is the result of stepwise changes of consciousness. So I can expand a little bit here that each of these 9 levels is developing through 13 specific energies, and they are alternating energies. So there are days, there are 7 days, and then there are 6 nights in between. And what you see then is that the emergence of money, going from about 5,000 years ago, from a bartering system, goes step by step into a system based on paper money. It's an abstraction of value that is actually happening in our mind. So money is not just a technical invention that somebody came up with. It's a reflection of how our mind has been changing according to the Mayan calendar. And so this is now being, you might say that there is an opposite energy coming in that is serving to take away our subordination to the this whole concept of abstract money
Mm-hmm.
and looking at reality as it is, concretely, rather than just being driven to accumulate this abstract thing called money.
Mm.
But
Eh,
the bottom line is money is a result of these stepwise changes in consciousness that the Mayan calendar describes.
And then a new form of exchange exists or emerges. A new cycle, a day cycle opens up.
Yeah, something replaces, and I'm not sure that it will just disappear. That doesn't seem very likely. It's just that its role will be vastly transformed, and so it becomes more in the service of people, I guess, compared to what is now, where it really is very much a means of exerting power. That's not for everyone, but that's the nature of power, I guess. Yeah.
So that when is that sixth night again?
Well, it's already started. So it started November 8th, which is now 2 weeks ago, and it will continue until November the 3rd in 2010.
Okay.
So it's almost a full year. It's 360 days. The Mayan calendar are based on these time periods, 360 days and 260 days. They're not astronomically based, but on these energy time periods.
So they're not of the same time, because then the next one, the seventh one, how long is it? It's not another 3 years, because you said that then in March there is this big happening. So those waves are shorter, more intense.
That's right.
Is that why things are accelerating? Because we feel it right now. Things are happening fast.
Yeah. Things are happening fast, and every one of these 9 levels that I talked about develops according to its own rhythm. Each wave movement has its own frequency. And in the beginning, in the lowest underworld, the shifts are happening as rarely as every 1.25 billion years. Now, when you climb the pyramid, the shifts are coming faster and faster. They're coming at a higher and higher frequency. And so now we're up here where the shifts are happening every 360 days, which is nothing compared to 1.25 billion years. But then there is one more that is not activated yet, as I mentioned, and fully starting March 8th. And then the shifts will be happening every 18th day.
Wow.
And the shifts, and that's what creates our experience of an acceleration of the process, that things are happening very fast around us and increasingly faster. It's because we are climbing up to wave movements that are developing our consciousness with a higher frequency as
getting ready. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then after that, you're saying it's accelerating, and how? I mean, what happens then? Just so that.
Well, yeah. Well, I think what happens then is that there comes a point when no new shifts are being introduced, and so it's sort of after this acceleration, which really will, I think, require a lot of adaptation on our part. There will be a new stability, though, the end of the shifts, as I imagine it happening, and so that at that, the way to look upon it is, I think, is we're still in a universe that is being created. Yes. The human beings are still being created, and we're not yet at that cosmic universal level of mind where we're meant to be. And that, I believe, will then be established at least in the cosmos, it will be established in late October of 2011. And that's sort of a new stage. It's like, it's like we have been struggling to climb on a ladder to the roof of the house. Yeah. But then and it's hard when you climb, but once you're up there, there is a new stability, there is a new, or the top of the pyramid, there's a new place to be, simply. And that's really, as I understand, the end result of the creation, basically.
So do you have a last message for everyone looking right now, or a recommendation, or last message that you would like to give us?
Well, I think I have one article I think I'd like to recommend that on my website, which is the 999, the meaning of that particular date, and for people to learn about the Mayan calendar and to already now focus on being on this highest level. That's, I can't say how is this to be done, but what I do know is that everything starts with an intention, and that intention must not be missing in people. And if that happens, I'm sure it will be an easier transition, where the importance of many of these economic difficulties will be downplayed for those that are focused on coming to this highest level of consciousness.
So what could be the intention? How can this intention can be formulated?
Well, I think it's an intention of attaining a unity consciousness. Okay. I think that's what I'd like to.
Yeah. So it's an intention. It's something that you put out there. My intention is to be open to oneness, to be opening myself to consciousness, to open my heart to, all that, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much. This was.
Thank you. In the cosmic scheme, as I can understand it. And so what I have predicted will come out here is some even intensified economic downturn, and one that will especially hit the Western economies, and especially the American dollar. And you can never predict on a single day, so to speak, in the Mayan calendar. At least I cannot, and I have never heard anybody who can. But this is something called the sixth night, which means basically the universe is going down to a lower state. It sort of returns back. It always alternates. There's nothing really linear in the evolution of the universe, but it goes down. And so for this, usually what happens when these nights begin, at least the later nights, is that there is some downturn in creativity. They are sort of meant to be periods of rest. Some kind of significant decrease in the value of the American dollar, which is the world's reserve currency, and much of the Western power in the world has been based on. So that is what I see, and what I think the result is sort of you can't even speculate on it. It's just that the consequence would be some kind of a shock to the system of exchange of all. Something that I'm expecting to happen sometime in the next couple of months, and that will sort of intensify this downturn, and in a sense really maybe force people to come up with a new way of relating and a new way of creating the world that they did not feel obliged to earlier.
So what do you see there? Is there a financial
Well,
collapse?
yeah, I see some kind of a financial collapse, especially then some.
So there is a lot of resistance, and there is some predictions that you're making right now about the economy and some things that are really going to happen that are going to kind of force this and people to think differently. Can you tell us of what's happening right now, what you see through the calendar, and what's happening in the economy?
Yeah. So quite recently, then we started a new phase in one of these wave movements, the eighth of the levels of the nine-storied pyramid, and that was what